So a lot of you were commenting on my best gear for every class video about making one for the less wealthy, a budget class guide. Today, I'm going to give it a shot, however, I'm not sure what's considered wealthy, so the goal is to keep each class build under 2 million coins, since I think that's a reasonable amount for someone looking to do dungeons. I cannot guarantee this will be enough to beat floor 4 since you're supposed to have endgame dungeon gear for that, but I'll do my best to find a way. If you enjoy my content, remember to leave a like, since every like is 1% more that I look like Bonzo in real life. Subscribe for daily guides, and ring the bell for good luck. Check the description for all the goods, and join my Discord to stay up to date with the community. We have about 400 members now, and it's a nice place to hang out. Thanks, and enjoy the video. We will be covering all 5 classes in today's video, so make sure you watch all the way through to make sure you don't miss anything. Each class we will cover armor, weapons, other items, and reforges you want on them, and some general tips and precautions to take when using their respective budget gear in dungeons. Starting off with Mage armor, I would recommend going for the Dark and Shadow goggles along with Wise Dragon armor. I'm not sure how much Wise Dragon armor is, but honestly, you're really going to want to save up for it. If it's like 2.1 million coins, I'm sure someone's going to laugh at me, but honestly, I think you really do need Wise armor. It gives an insane amount of intelligence, and while it's squishy, you will be able to at least deal damage as your mage. Your weapons are going to be very limited as a mage, since common ones such as Frozen Scythe and Bonzo Staff will be far out of your price range. I recommend going with a Dreadlord sword, since it shoots a skull dealing magic damage. And if you can afford it, at about 1 million coins is the Voodoo Doll, since the damage per second on this weapon is very high. For talismans, mages should set all of their talismans to Bazaar. For armor, they should use Necrotic, which is a reforged stone. And for their weapons, they should use Heroic, since this gives the most amount of intelligence. Budget mages should be going with an Epic Sheep pet. Legendary is a little bit too expensive, but Epic Sheep is still pretty darn good, alright? Some general tips for mages that are using a budget set is to stay back and be careful. Don't get hit by anything, because anything could probably be a lethal blow to you. Your job is to be a ranged damage per second player, so you want to stay back and shoot some beams and wither skulls from the back. Moving on to Berserker, there are only 2 armor sets that are really viable, and honestly, I think both of these sets are kind of bad, but we have to do with what we have to do. The first set is the Zombie Knight set. It gives decent strength per piece, and it gives an okay amount of defense, I would say, but it's kind of really squishy. The second set is Skeletor, and this is because of the full set bonus. It grants 1 strength and 1 crit damage for every 10 Skeletor kills. So the longer you're using this armor set, the better it will be. However, again, extremely squishy, so you have to be careful. I spent a long time trying to figure out the best budget weapon for Berserker, but honestly, it's really hard to find a weapon that's either medium priced, good damage, and doesn't have a Catacombs requirement really. And the only weapon I was able to settle on was the Adaptive Blade. While I don't recommend most people use the Adaptive Blade since it's outclassed by weapons such as the Hypercleaver, the Silent Death, and the new Spirit Sword, it's the only one that's really cheap enough to be able to be used for a budget build and have no Catacombs requirement, so the Adaptive Blade will be your best bet for this. A Berserker's talismans are the most complicated to explain, and I've actually made an entire video dedicated to just a Berserker's talismans. I'll link to that in the top right. It gives a great example of how attack speed works and how to reforge to it. For weapons, you're going to want to reforge all your weapons to either Sharp or Epic. This gives the most damage possible. And for armor, you're going to want to try to put Spiked on your armor. If you can't afford Spiked on your armor, then go ahead and get Pure. It's a great balance between defense, HP, attack speed, and damage. For a budget Berserker pet, I'm going to recommend the Epic Tiger pet. Because of the double strike ability, it's very strong. Some general tips for Berserker is try not to take on too many enemies at once. You don't want to overwhelm yourself since your lifesteal won't be very good, assuming you have lifesteal 3, which is common for most people to have. And since you're going to be very squishy, it's important you stay back and remember to use your ultimate Ragnarok ability if you're in danger. A healer's armor is very easy. A Mender helmet or a Mender fedora based on your Catacombs level. And for actual armor, either use Zombie Soldier for more HP, or if you're looking for just defense, Super Heavy armor does the job just fine. A healer doesn't really need to have a super strong weapon since their main job is healing. I would recommend, if you can, the Hypercleaver. But if you can't have the Catacombs requirement or the coins, go with the Super Cleaver. It's a great AoE weapon that will provide enough lifesteal for you to stay alive. A healer's talismans are very simple. You're going to want about half shiny and half pleasant. These give HP and defense, which is very important for keeping a healer alive. You could argue, however, that you want damage reforges so you can lifesteal, which is also true. However, it's probably just easier to go with a defense build. For armor, you're going to want to go with Reinforced, since Perfect is a little bit too expensive. And for weapons, you're going to want to go with Legendary, because of the crit chance it provides. For a pet, since we're not going to be able to afford an epic jellyfish or ghoul, I'm going to recommend going with a tank pet, like Giraffe or Whale. This is because of either the regen Giraffe gives, or the HP that Whale gives. Some general tips for healer are, stay close to the Berserker and the Mage, keep using your shift so you use your healing circle, and keep everyone alive, since that's very powerful. For Archer, you're going to want the Skeleton Master set. It's way overpowered for arrows, and since it doesn't have much defense, it's actually a pretty cheap build. So just stay back and be careful when using this, but this will deal the most damage. The best bow on a budget build is by far the Hurricane Bow. Because it shoots 5 arrows, you're able to deal with swarms much better than most people. I highly recommend the Hurricane Bow for a budget Archer class. For reforges, I've heard mixed things, but what I'm going to recommend is setting all of your talismans to Forceful. This is because things like your armor and your bow itself will give plenty of crit damage, so it's more important to have enough base strength to be able to deal with this. So set every single talisman you have to Forceful. For armor, I would recommend setting your armor to Fierce. This is because it gives the most damage possible for a bow. And for your actual bow itself, you're going to want to use an optic lens to give it the precise reforge. This gives the most damage possible, and hey, headshots for extra damage, am I right? For a pet, you should definitely be able to afford the legendary skeleton pet. I've heard it's only about 1 million coins right now, and it's definitely worth its price. Some general tips for Archer is to stay back as much as you can, and if you're close up in range, make sure to draw back your bow all the way to make sure you land critical hits on it, alright? For tank, it's more or less the same build as healer. You're going to want reinforced zombie soldier armor for more health, or reinforced super heavy armor for more defense. For a weapon, I would recommend the Super Cleaver. Just like with healer, this is a great weapon for dealing with swarms. And as a tank, your goal is to attract as many mobs to you as possible, so being able to hit them all at the same time is ideal. Reforge this to legendary. For talismans, use half shiny and half pleasant. This is because of defense and HP it gives. And for a pet, use a rare blue whale or an epic giraffe for life regeneration and HP. Some general tips for tank are to make sure to attract as many mobs to you as possible, and use the Super Cleaver to make sure you can get enough lifesteal to survive. That just about covers it for budget gear. If you enjoyed, leave a like, and since you made it to the end, consider subscribing. It's tough for smaller channels to battle the YouTube algorithm, and every sub makes me slightly more powerful. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.